Welcome back to the Tikit Setup Series. Today we're going to configure Tikit with OpenAI as it exists on Azure to respond with generative-based responses when no knowledge is found in your knowledge base. And it looks a little something like this. What are the company holidays? And when I type this and no knowledge is found, I'm going to get back a generative-based response. And you can see that these are the holidays that are observed based on some documentation that I've previously uploaded. So let's get this set up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to the Azure portal, which you can do by going to portal.azure.com. And then we're going to click on Create Resource. And we're going to search for OpenAI. And we're going to get a few results back, but the one that we're most interested in is the one that is called Azure OpenAI by Microsoft. So let's click on this one. And you can see Azure OpenAI by Microsoft. Let's click on Create. And we're going to be presented with a few questions. What subscription does this go in, right? So if you have one or many subscriptions, this is going to be what the resources build towards, so choose accordingly. And then the next question is going to be, what is the name of the resource group? What is the resource group that you'd like to place this OpenAI resource into? Now, a resource group is nothing more than a collection of like things. So I'm going to create a new resource called GenAI, and it's going to contain all of my generative AI resources. I'm going to be able to choose a region. You should pick the one that is closest to you. And then I have to give this resource a name. My OpenAI resource has to have a name in my Azure subscription. And it also does need to be unique. So I'm going to just paste some text in here. And then I have to choose a pricing tier. Now, as of this recording, there's only a single pricing tier. So go ahead and click on that. Let's do standard S0. We'll click on Next. You're going to be asked, which networks should this be bound to or accessible by? And in this case, we're going to leave it as all networks, including the internet, can access this resource. Let's click Next. Again, depending on your organization, if you use tags in your organization, this is your opportunity to set those values. But if not, go ahead and click Next. Let this review. And if everything looks good, we're going to just click on Create. So let's do that and begin the deployment of our OpenAI resource on Azure. With our deployment complete, let's click on Go to Resource. And then we're going to head into Azure OpenAI Studio by clicking down here. The first thing we're going to do once we're in Azure OpenAI Studio is we're going to head over to Chat. And we're going to be prompted to create a new deployment. So let's do that by clicking on Create New Deployment. And let's give this a name like Tikit Prod. And I'm going to select a model. And the model we're going to use is GPT-35 Turbo 16K. And the model version is going to be 0613, the default. The deployment type is going to be standard. It's the only choice we actually have. And we're going to leave actually everything else exactly as you see it. So let's go ahead and click Create and create that deployment. So once we've created our deployment, we want to upload our own data so that we can actually experience what ChatGPT is like and OpenAI is like, well, once we upload our own data. So let's click on Add Your Data. I'm going to click on Add a Data Source. And you're going to notice I have several options to choose from, but let's go with Upload Files. Very much like the Azure portal, you're going to be asked to pick a subscription, and then also, well, where do you actually want to store these uploaded files? And so we need to select a Azure Blob Storage resource for that. Now, if you already have one, you can use it, but for the sake of this, I'm going to create a brand new one. So let's click on Create a New Azure Blob Storage Resource. Once we're here, we're going to then create a storage account. And just like before when we were provisioning our OpenAI resource, I have to choose a subscription and then the resource group that this storage account is going to be located in. Now in the previous step, we already created a resource group called GenAI. And that's exactly the resource group that I'm going to use and place the storage account in. Next, we need to give the storage account a name, and it does need to be unique. So paste that in. Region, again, we're going to have to choose the location closest to you. It makes the most sense. Then we're going to be asked for a primary service, and we're going to choose Azure Blob Storage. You'll then be prompted for a primary workload. Now, there's a couple options here, but we can actually just select Other. Next is the performance. Again, standard will do. You also have a choice in redundancy. So by default, it's going to provide geo-redundant storage. But if you would like to go lower or higher, you certainly can. The choice is yours. And at this point, this is actually all we need to do in order to set up the storage account for the Tikit OpenAI integration on Azure. There is a host of other data points that are available here and configuration options. If you'd like to set those, certainly do so. But again, this is the minimum that is required. So let's just click on Review and Create and get this review screen up. We're going to click on Create, initializing deployment. And then we're going to wait while this resource deploys in Azure. With our resource deployed, we actually don't need to go to resource. We actually just go right back to Chat Playground. And let's click on this little refresh icon. And now we're going to be able to see, like, here's our storage account that we just created. And you might get this warning/suggestion. So let's turn on cores. Great. And then the very next question is select the Azure AI search resource to use with this. Now again, if you already have one, you can use it. But again, for the sake of argument, let's create a brand new one from scratch. Once back in the Azure portal where we're going to create a new search service, we're again going to choose a subscription and where this resource is going to be stored and located within Azure. Now again, we've already put a storage account in there. We've already put an OpenAI resource in there, and we're going to also put this search service into our Gen AI resource group. Next, we need to give it a name, so let's go with something unique. Again, a location, pick what's closest to you. And then we're going to choose a pricing tier. Now, by default, it's selected at standard, but if we click on change pricing tier, you'll notice you actually have several options. Now, at a minimum, you actually have to choose the basic option. You actually can't train OpenAI with your own data using the free plan. So at the very minimum, you need to choose basic. But of course, you can scale up as your needs or data storage requirements vary. So let's choose basic. I'm going to click select. And then I actually just click on review and create. Click on create. Let's get this created. With our deployment complete, let's go back into Chat Playground. Again, we're going to click on this little refresh button. We are going to choose our new Azure AI search resource. And let's provide an index name. And so let's call this Tikit Index 01. I'm going to click on Next. So here's where I can now upload my data and train OpenAI on that uploaded documentation, right? And this can either be text files, Markdown, HTML, PDFs, a host of options are available. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to upload a single document. It's going to be a PDF. It's going to be an employee handbook. And so all I have to do is just drag that in here, click on Browse for File. And once I've done that, I'm going to click on Upload Files. Done. Let's click on Next. Now, data management. All we have to do is change the search type from semantic to keyword. We're going to leave this at 1024, which is the default. Click on Next. As far as data connection is concerned, we're going to change this from system assigned managed identity to API key. So just click on API key. Click on Next. Again, we kind of have like a review and finish screen here. Everything looks good. Let's click on Save and Close. And then my documents are going to be uploaded into OpenAI on Azure. With my documentation uploaded, I can actually now try this out directly inside of Azure OpenAI Studio. So let's say, what are the company holidays? And again, it's okay that I misspelled that because I'm still actually going to get a generative-based response based on what I was searching for, right? Here's the company holidays. And no less, I can see the reference documentation that this answer came from. So the very next thing we're going to do is now wire this up into Tikit so that when Tikit Virtual Agent doesn't know how to respond, it's going to use OpenAI and the documentation we've uploaded to provide a response. To configure this, we're going to need a few things, two of which we actually can get from Azure Chat Studio, the deployment name and the index name. So let's go back to Chat Studio. And you can see here's the index name that we created, right? Remember Tikit index 01 and deployment name of Tikit prod. Notice the capital T, capital P there. So now let's go back. So our deployment name is Tikit prod and our index name is Tikit index 01. Next, we're going to need a few other items to fill out the OpenAI and document repository information that we can get from the Azure portal. Now to fill out the rest of this, we're going to need to obtain this information from those resources inside of the Azure portal. So let's go back there now. And again, we can get there by going to portal.azure.com. And because we created a resource group at the beginning of this that contains all of our resources, it should be recently listed, but if not, we can also search for GenAI. Again, that was the name of the resource group we created for this to house all of our OpenAI resources for our Tikit integration. But I'm going to click into GenAI. I'm going to click into my Azure OpenAI service, right? You can see that right here. Let's click. And then we're going to expand resource management and head into keys and endpoint. Now, once I'm in here, I can copy either of these keys. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go back into our OpenAI configuration. I'm going to paste this key in. Next, I need the API URI, which is the endpoint URL. And if we go back, again, here's our endpoint. So let's copy this. We'll go back, paste that in. And now we're done with this section. For the remainder, we now need to add our Azure Search Service and blob storage details. So next, let's fill out the search URI details and search key for this integration. Again, we're going to go back to the Azure portal. We're last in OpenAI here, so I can just close this. I'm going to head into our search service next. And once we're in our search service, we're going to expand settings, go to keys, and again, much like the OpenAI service, we have a primary admin key, secondary admin keys. Let's just copy one of those. So search key, pasted, but we also need the search URI. So let's go back, and we actually just head up to overview here because we still have this open, right? Here's the URL for that, the URI. Paste that in. And now the last thing we need is our blob connection string, which we'll get from our storage account. So to get our blob connection string, we're going to head back to the Azure portal, and we can close our search service. And we're going to head into our storage account resource next. And once we're in here, we're going to expand security and networking and head over to access keys. Now, just like OpenAI, just like the Azure Search Service, we have a pair of keys. Only this time we're actually not interested in the keys, we're actually interested in the connection string. And again, just like before, you can pick either connection string, it does not matter. So I'm going to click Show, and then I can copy to clipboard. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to paste that blob connection string in. Now, last but not least, I can also choose in my generative responses, do I want citation file downloads to be available? Do I want documentation to be cited when a response is returned? I want to leave this on so that my users can download files and they can actually see where this information came from. So now let's click Save. And next, let's head back over to Tikit Virtual Agent and try this out. So now in Tikit Virtual Agent, let's ask, what are the company holidays? And it's okay that I typoed it, because since I have nothing to find in my knowledge base, Tikit Virtual Agent is going to look to OpenAI on Azure for that response. And just as you might expect, it behaves just like Tikit's own knowledge base in that there's another road to ticket deflection even in these generative responses. Now, if you want to add more documentation to OpenAI, all you have to do is just go back to Azure Chat Studio and repeat the upload steps, or rewind this video if you'd rather follow along. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at team@tikit.ai.